It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week we're getting into the holiday special spirit.
Yeah, this is where Chris, if he wanted to get into the post-production of the show, he would put in the jingle bells, just jing, jing, jing.
But actually, I don't want to because you should tell me this beforehand because we're recording this live, as you know, for now on. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Brazil's Comic-Con, as CCXP, as some call it, could have tons of good announcements next weekend.
Yes, and usually does.
Yeah, it's a sleeper Comic-Con in December, by all means. So very excited about that. We'll talk about what we're expecting. Andor Season 1 gets reviewed on this show, this episode today.
Finally,
and
Chris got on top of it during the holiday weekend.
Yes, the holiday week, actually. I was going to say, happy post-Thanksgiving to everyone who's listening to the show today. Hope everyone had a good holidays with their family, had a good spread of delicious food. I do have to say, I'm going to go ahead and apologize. I may sound a little congested. I also have a cough drop in my mouth. Over the week, my wife and I were struck with the flu, both on separate days. So we are she is one day ahead of me in terms of recovery, and I am one day behind. So we missed out literally on any large events. We spent minimal time with family and around people to recover. So in that interim, while we were literally dealing with body aches and chills and the like, we were literally binging Andor on TV, Mike. So it took a little illness to get us to sit down and watch this finally. So
you were playing Pokemon too in the middle of all that. I'm sure of it.
Well, I was, yeah. I've got one of those huge bean bags, like those like adult size bean bags.
Ooh,
kind of
the
thing.
love sacks.
Not a love sack, but like the Amazon version of a love sack, if you will.
Okay.
And I literally just have my body imprint on it, and I would lay down on it with a blanket and my Switch and play it or take a nap while I was recovering. So it was fantastic. But we did wake up at 9 in the morning, and we were like, we can't fall back to sleep. Let's go watch Andor for the rest of the day, and knocked out literally a whole season in 24 hours. So it was pretty fun. But yes, I'm recovering from sickness, so I apologize ahead of time if that comes through on this. Secondly, Mike, I do want to give a shout out. We are testing new artwork on our show today. You talk about pre-production. I'm going to talk about post-production here. We have new avatars. We're testing new gifts. So if you get a chance, please head over to our YouTube channel, Superhero Slate on YouTube, and check this out while we're testing it out. Mike, thank you for drawing those. And yeah, I know it's not done, but it's fun to see them. I literally get to watch them as we react to our voices.
The production side of things, just independent production in general, has just been fascinating me lately. I mean, I know we're not really using artificial intelligence at all in this. We're just using kind of a simple yes or no if somebody's talking, play this animated GIF. But I have just been fascinated with just AI in general, to the point where now on TikTok there is a voice filter which basically interprets your voice and lays over not just a high pitched it turns you into a chipmunk, it gives you a different voice. So it's nuts. Every friend I have that's on TikTok, it's using this voice filter, and it's just will I ever be able to hear your normal voice again? Because people are just so excited to use it. I sent this to you just the other day, but I saw somebody was using AI to make their own concept art for a prequel to Black Panther. And, these AIs have so many more tools now where it's not just you type in a prompt, but you can feed it, suggested imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were casting John Boyega in a role. So, they're feeding the AI pictures of John Boyega, then saying something along the lines of put tribal face tattoos on John Boyega, put him in an African setting with similar garb, and it's pretty convincing. The number one way to determine, at least right now, if something is AI is look at the hands and the fingers. Like just like a real artist who struggles with hands and fingers, AI doesn't quite understand that we have, 5 on each hand, and they usually just turn into like a weird meat mallet at the end. So if you're ever curious if something is AI, see if you can look for a hand.
Because it looks really good. It looks, I would say probably, looking at comparing it to Boss Logic, right? He's someone who uses his manual skills to create really, really good lifelike concept art and fan imagery. The AI stuff on this thread that you shared and was really convincing, and I think is going to test the limits of what people believe on announcements for movies and TV shows, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, we're excited for this Black Panther prequel show with John Boyega, and you're like, nah, actually that was somebody's AI concept that they did together. It looks real, doesn't it? It looks really good, but no, it's not, because it's not just one photo. It's like a thread, at least maybe 20 images or so.
And I think what's really important is the context too. The very first image in it, which I'm pretty sure isn't AI generated because the person seems to be some sort of digital artist as well, is a fake logo mock-up, which AIs aren't super great at that, so that looks like that was probably manually made. So it's all about context, and I wouldn't be surprised if filmmakers will be using AI a lot more when pitching to studios, right? Obviously when you're pitching a Marvel movie, you have visual development artists there that you pay that can make anything that you've ever dreamed of, down to the little pixel perfection, right? But if you're just a rando out in Hollywood pitching to a studio, you don't have to necessarily go out and hire an artist anymore. Feed some good prompts to an AI, and then you can kind of give these producers and executives more of a visual idea of what you want to do, instead of just finding comps out there on the internet of I want it to feel like Indiana Jones. So instead of actually showing them a picture of Indiana Jones, which is something really, really rare, you don't want to compare your possible movie to one of the best movies of all time, right? But
I think a pitch man would be I have this is the next Indiana Jones, but it's this stuff is really, really cool, because if it it can take off, we might. I don't think we should replace concept arts. I think they're the ones taking such realistic, but I think people could sell their idea better, what you're saying, right? Hey, look, I had this idea for this show about the first Black Panther. Here's my fan cast, and here's what I want it to look like. Oh, this is a pretty good pitch deck for this show. Honestly, right out the gate, without having anybody signed in. I think the one thing that got me was the first image is the logo. Yes, the second image is actually recasting, or I guess not recasting, taking Brian Tyree Henry from Eternals and reusing him as Phastos in this, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's not a bad. I actually didn't think about that either. He would technically kind of be there. Actually, I'm going to put this in our show notes.
Yeah,
so come on over to our show notes this week. Check it out; it's pretty interesting. But this is a long-winded way of saying one day we will entirely automate the podcast. We will just feed it news prompts and ingest its opinions from us, and we just won't have to record it. And we'll hit a button and we'll just lay back.
We'll just do the show notes, and Mike will just come in and add some random flavor text, and we'll call it a show. Do that. If not, worst case scenario, we'll just film ourselves with video, rotoscope over us, and feed it into the other system you sent me to. So we can talk about that. I don't want to jump ahead.
End of the show. We'll talk about that. I'm so excited to talk about that. Did you watch? I'll ask you if you watched the video. Okay, great. Awesome. This is going to be a fun episode. We got lots of fun things to talk about. But before we jump into the news, Chris, what have you been watching on this this time of the year?
So I jumped in and bought some cheap 4K discs, sets that were on sale before Black Friday and before holiday week. One of those again is the newest release version, the 4K version of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which comes with a 1 hour extra of footage that was cut from this movie. Apparently, when John Hughes filmed it, it was a 3 hour and 30-minute original cut of the film.
That's like an epic.
And it wasn't because it was it had a bunch of important stuff. It's just because that's how John Hughes, he'll write and he'll film and he'll write and he'll film while he's doing everything at the same time. Ended up with this long stuff and cut it down. So a lot of this missing footage from this is there, including, I always tell people, I think one of the worst parts about this movie is the wife, right, who's at home, and you're like, why is she so sad? Why is she upset this whole time? He's trying to get, her husband's trying to get home for Thanksgiving through any means necessary, even putting up with Del Griffith. And come to find out, there's a whole subscene where she doesn't believe Del is a real person, that Steve Martin's having an affair with her, and that's why she's acting that way. But all that was cut. All that was cut out because of time. It's a comedy, right? You don't need a 3.5 hour comedy movie. So a lot of that was cut out, and the stuff that remains is fine. It works. It shows the emotion. But I'm like, oh, okay. So a lot of the stuff there's a scene of John Candy eating a hot dog and smoking a cigarette at the same time, kind of thing. I'm like, oh, this is classic John Candy stuff. So I think that if you're a big fan of that movie, the 4K with the extra hours is a must-have. You got to watch it. I can't find it on YouTube yet, but maybe in a year or something, they'll probably slip some of that stuff online that you could get. The other movie I got is I really, really wanted to see Dune uncompressed, right? Because when you stream it, it is 4K, it's fine, but you're getting a compressed version because you have to send this over the internet. The disc versions are uncompressed, full audio, full video, so I was able to pick up Dune, and let me tell you, that movie is still a really good experience. Despite the fact it's half a movie, it's still a really good experience on a 4K Blu-ray. So if you have a nice TV set, or you're upgrading this Black Friday, this holiday season, and you want something to really kind of push the limits of what's out there, the new 2021 Dune movie is definitely... Was it 2021? It was last year, right, Dune?
Sure.
The newest Dune movie, not the original Dune movie, is going to push that limits. And I know they're filming the second one right now, so maybe I think having both of those is going to be a must-have for people who really like to test audio and video fidelity on their system. So highly recommend both of those if you're that. Also, what I love about them is they all come with digital code. So if you are a stickler for digital, you could still watch it on digital if you want and have the disc later. But you watched 2 movies here. Don't ruin the first one for me, because you're more into the Christmas movies already, way more than I am. We haven't got that far yet. Like I said, we're still recovering. So the first one is on my Christmas watch list post Thanksgiving. So don't spoil it. But the other one I don't care about already. I can tell by the name.
Chris,
go ahead and let me.
You will be surprised here momentarily. So if you need another use for your Apple Plus subscription, because it's been a minute since there's been a season of Ted Lasso, and who knows when season 2 of Severance is going to be hitting the streaming service. There's a new holiday movie called Spirited, starring Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. And I won't reveal anything, but I think most of the plot of the movie is revealed in the trailers. This is kind of like a more modernized Christmas Carol, and Ryan Reynolds is kind of the modern Scrooge, if you will. And one thing I didn't know about it is this is a musical. There is large musical numbers with big dance segments. The songs are nice, catchy, and I wouldn't mind throwing the soundtrack on my kind of Christmas music holiday playlist. So I'm sure the soundtrack is on Spotify. I haven't quite tracked it down yet, but I could recommend.
I bet it's on Apple Music.
Oh, yeah, probably. Actually, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, Spirited, I would recommend it. It seems a little long. It felt long, at least. I think it only comes in at about 2 hours, so not really all that much. But speaking of things getting cut, since Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, there is a whole dance number that they did cut from the movie that they're nice enough to tack it on in the credits of the film. Really? So you kind of get to go back and watch it. And it's kind of funny because Will Ferrell's about to break out into song and dance, and his boss tells him no, we're not doing that right now. So he says, okay, everybody wrap it up, and then the plot moves along. And then it turns out, there was a whole dance number that was happening, and they did record, so they tack it on to the end. So, and it was a lot too. I mean, talk about quote unquote killing your babies when it comes to screenwriting. They just chucked that whole segment out. So I'm glad. So stick around for the credits. Yes. I mean, stick to the credits and watch it. So yeah, I could recommend Spirited. Check it out. And then Chris, you're not prepared. You're not prepared for this last movie. Do you know anything about the film? Holly and the Hot Chocolate.
Other than what your wife has posted on Facebook, no.
So this is wild. Okay, so let me preface this with saying, if you don't already know, the last couple weeks on the podcast, I've been saying we've been watching some of the really schlocky, just churn and burn Christmas movies this holiday season, right? The ones that come to the Hallmark Channel, the Lifetime Channel, the super cheap ones that Netflix dumps in end of October, November. And, even though the holiday season has kind of officially started after Thanksgiving, I'm like addicted to these films. So after we watch Spirited, eat some Thanksgiving leftovers, hop back on the couch, and I see on my Roku home screen, over next to all of my channel icons, you have that right side banner with the movie poster that says Holly and the Hot Chocolate. The poster, I can tell you, looks just as cheesy as any of the other cheap Christmas movies that have been turned out, right? You have the love interests, it's all red and Christmassy, and you have the sweet name too. And then, weirdly enough, Chris, you wouldn't believe this, but this film is available exclusively only on QVC Plus. That is correct.
They have their own. The shopping channel has their own streaming network.
Exactly. QVC, which I believe is also owned or connected to HSN because their logo was on the poster as well, have their own streaming service. So I was like, oh, we gotta watch this. So I hit play. First red flag, Chris, only an hour long. Like, how often does that happen? Usually they kind of pad these out to at least 90 minutes because I guess if you're airing on cable, right, you can throw in some commercials.
And I think it has to do with Screenwriters Guild too, right? Or like Actors Guild. Like, it has to be over a certain length to get credits in the SAG-AFTRA world. Anyway,
and if you look this up on IMDb, I believe it is officially categorized as a TV movie as well.
TV movie is what I'm seeing here.
Yes. So the biggest shock out of all of this, Chris, and no one is going to believe me after everything I just said, is this movie is legitimately good. I'm not talking about a great movie to make fun of and sit down on the couch with all your friends and turn it into a drinking game. This movie is actually funny and competent and knows exactly what it's doing. We were absolutely shocked because we went in with lowest expectations, and then, bam, there's a joke in the beginning, and we're just like, oh, that's kind of funny, but okay, anyone can get one funny joke out, right? And then it just keeps going. And me and my wife look at each other. We're like, through the first act of this film, we're like, is this happening? Is this movie actually good? A film made for QVC Plus? And we just are watching in almost amazement, right? Mm-hmm. We get halfway through the film, and I say, babe, if this movie keeps up this pace, we are going to watch this every year. It is hilarious. I'm gutturally laughing at some of the jokes, and I cannot conceive what is happening. Like, this has never happened to me before, watching one of these cheesy Christmas movies. Because at least when you're over on Netflix, right, they're kind of getting more of a budget. They're getting a little bit more talent in the door, and you can at least kind of count on, like, mediocre to just okay. QVC Plus, like, this is insane. And I don't know anything about these home shopping networks, but as I look up this movie after we watch it, it's like a cinematic universe. They're throwing cameos in from these people that like pitch like other things on the network. Like the person that runs the hot chocolate stand in this little Christmas town is a QVC host that sells things. So it's even more, it's a whole nother level if you even watch these shopping channels, which I didn't, but I was glad to find out that they're even playing with that as well. And it was fascinating. I could not. The feeling was so strange. We were just gutturally laughing. The jokes were popping off.
There's not even a Wikipedia page for this.
It's like that's the thing. It's so small. Like it's so small that I was able to find the director and the actors on Twitter and Instagram, and I just messaged them, like cold called them, basically saying, "Hey, this movie was really good. Good job." And they got back to me. I talked to the director and the star of this movie, and they're like retweeting me, and they're like sharing my my screenshot of my my Instagram story, and it's just like, this is like fascinating. I feel like I'm at the beginning of something here. So like the director, his name is John McKeever, and he has like some sketch comedy like experience in his past. He has some like little videos on YouTube and stuff, but I wouldn't say necessarily anything like so viral that, you know, it would be like a household name. So like I wouldn't be shocked if this guy goes on to actually do something that we earnestly talk about maybe on the show in the future. It's just, Chris, I couldn't tell you how sidelined we were about watching Holly and the Hot Chocolate because everything on the surface of it, right, just screams like this is for your mom, right? Don't watch this. Don't waste your time. But like, I couldn't recommend this movie anymore. It's good. Like, go watch it. I don't know how you get QVC Plus, outside of Roku. I mean, it was just an app for me, so I don't know.
That's all I can find on it. It's on Roku,
yeah, so I don't know exactly, if you can get like QVC Plus on your Xbox or PlayStation.
It's only
I don't
on
know
Roku,
what the deal.
yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing was though, when the movie's over, you are presented with like an interactive screen to buy said hot chocolate, which I thought was really, really funny.
So it's now we're on commercial. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just bravo. Like, and like, I almost think you got to give equal credit to whoever at QVC was in charge of this movie to just let these funny people do something funny, because the writing was on the wall, right? As soon as this movie was probably like kicked off, that this was just going to be forgettable. But yeah, I was not expecting to be talking about this at the beginning of our podcast, where we're next going to be talking about Avatar: The Way of Water. But yeah, Holly and the Hot Chocolate. Would you even believe it? Go watch it, folks. It's pretty dang funny.
I appreciate your enthusiasm. I'm not going to watch this, but I love your enthusiasm.
Oh, Chris.
So thank you.
I'll be recommending it every year.
Yep.
I'll probably do like a whole like Twitter breakdown thread of it next year, just to remind people how good it is. But
okay,
go check this out. Weird.
You have fun
Weird.
with that, yeah. But that means it is time for the holiday season to watch Christmas movies. So if you have any holiday movies you like, whether that be Die Hard, Muppet Christmas Carol, whatever you have, send them our way. I want to know what you guys are watching. I always get excited. Today I was sitting there at lunch and I saw the commercials for the Rankin and Bass Rudolph, right? I'm like, those are coming up. Those are my favorite. And then my other one that I always forget, Mike, and I'm going to tell you this. Do you know there are 2 Charlie Brown Christmas specials? There are 2.
No, I know one of them. Or no, I'm thinking of the Thanksgiving one. No,
right.
I'm not. Yeah.
So there's always the one, right, with the small Christmas tree. Right. What was that? I forget what that one's called. But the other one is It's Christmas Time Again, Charlie Brown, where he's put in charge, or he's not put in charge of a play, but his sister joins a play and she has to say hark, and she doesn't say it, she says hockey stick instead, and ruins the whole play. But I think he's going around trying to sell stuff from his collection to buy gloves, mittens as a Christmas present for his little crush. So there are always 2 Charlie Brown Christmas things. I don't think they're airing them this year. I think you have to get them on Apple. Another pitch for Apple on our show. So yeah, if you have any, send them our way. I want to know. I want to know what you're watching. Even if it's Holly and the Hot Chocolate, you can send them our way. We'll do it. So let's jump into theatrical releases for this month, Mike. Avatar: The Way of Water. Did not know that tickets weren't on sale, but tickets are now on sale for this movie, by the way. So if you're looking to watch that when it drops, go ahead and check that out. But apparently, this movie is theorized, rumored, kind of confirmed, maybe from James Cameron, to have cost around $400 million to make this movie.
Ooh, quite the budget.
A lot of blue people on it, right? I saw another commercial for this on TV near the Rudolph thing. I'm like, man, there's a lot of blue people on there, and so it's very, very CGI heavy. So that means that this has to be like the 7th. Maybe it was like the 4th or 5th highest returning movie this year to make a profit back on this, because that's $400 million to make. That doesn't include marketing costs, right, or anything else. So it's probably going to be like $800 million total when it's all said and done. So it's going to have to make a lot of money. I don't think it'll be a problem, but the other big part of... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, obviously this movie does need to turn a profit, but I think maybe a little unlike maybe some of the other properties that other studios might put out, is they can almost rest a little bit more on kind of the third-party sources of revenue, right? Obviously, you want a box office return, but Avatar's in a theme park. They're going to sell a ton of toys. There's other licensees and sponsorships that can go along with Avatar, like any movie Disney does, right? But I feel like Avatar is kind of like this next big merchandising juggernaut for it. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, if we see like maybe a mediocre or underwhelming box office return, it might not necessarily be a nail in a coffin for Avatar moving forward, because it has those other underlying features.
Yeah, I think the only reason it would be a quote unquote nail in the coffin for the fourth one, right? The third one's already pretty much done. Would be a super low return. Like if it had like maybe a big opening weekend and like what we talked about, no legs, right? Nobody went and saw. So it just maybe capped out around 200,000, like Black Adam numbers, right? Like people would be like, oh, this is bad. This is not good, even if it had the other stuff. So I don't think it will. The other thing with Avatar that made it so big, and I believe if you look at Box Office Mojo, it shows you 75% of the revenue, I believe, is overseas for this for the first movie. So it's not America it's relying on. However, unlike every other Disney movie this year, pretty much, this one has secured a release in China. Which is huge because they were, I think, $250,000 of the original one last time the first one came out. And no other Disney movie I know this year, or even since Black Widow, Marvel movie, has even gone over there. So I think that's big for that. But I also find it ironic that this was the only movie to do that, like days after Bob Iger has been reinstated as running Disney, which we haven't talked about that, which was happened after the show last week. But the timing of this is very, very peculiar overall. Yeah,
well, timing seems to be everything with this Bob Iger story. Yeah. If we want to just take a tangent here for a second, because I know it's just kind of a conspiratorial thinking in my head, right? But it seems like Bob Iger dipped for the perfect amount of time, right? He launched this streaming service. Marvel's at the height of its powers. Star Wars is finally starting to see like a light at the end of the tunnel with Mandalorian. And the kind of the elites out there in the world get the newsletter a little bit before the rest of us, that a pandemic is coming along the way. And I think Iger's just like, I think I'm just going to step out here. This seems like a good time to maybe lay low and give the job to somebody else. And then I am of the opinion that no matter who was in the CEO seat at Disney, like the last 2 or 3 years, was just not going to have a good time no matter what. I mean, the whole company is built on theme parks and entertainment, and those two things took weird hits, right? Theme parks obviously took a big hit during the pandemic, but streaming service saw this artificial inflation, right, of all these people staying at home subscribing, and they start going back out into the world. Everyone starts unsubbing, the markets panic and freak out, and now people pretend that streaming services are like, like about to be like buried 6 feet under, which is like not the truth. So it's like Bob Iger gets to return the glorious victor. It's just funny to me. It's just it's interesting.
I disagree. I think Bob Chapek is a businessman and not a personality, right? Like we never said anything good about him the day he started, whether we knew it or not. I think they could have found someone to do it better. As someone who goes to the parks in Florida, the changes he instituted, pandemic or not, like even without the pandemic, like this Genie Plus pass or whatever it's called, everything he's done has just been a fucking nightmare. Like as we're like planning to go within like in 4 weeks, I'm like, everything that we did 2 or 3 years ago completely changed by his demands. So I disagree. I think he was a bad person, but I also know Bob Iger wanted to retire well before the streaming thing, but that was like when that came about, he's like, oh yeah, I want to see this through. You can go back and look where he's like, yeah, I'll stay like 2 more years to get this up and going. But since he's come back, I think, people, maybe, I wouldn't say maybe whole countries are maybe more assuaged that he's like, hey, this guy's back. We know he can do business. He can turn numbers. He can do stuff that we want to do. Is that okay?
Yeah. So I guess you just can't underestimate the interpersonal just dealings between actual humans at like the top echelon business levels, right? So I think sometimes we always just break it down to like spreadsheets and numbers, but sometimes the person in charge, it does make a lot more meaning than you think it is.
And I think the biggest thing that I've seen a lot of articles have called out is the Black Widow deal, right? Where Scarlett Johansson had to litigate against Disney because of the digital release, because she wasn't brought in on that plan, despite, you know, her being part of this movie the whole time. So Chapek was just like, didn't bring her in, didn't talk to her. So when people have speculated, if Iger was there, he would have like talked her through it, right? Built her up, brought her into it, made sure she was aware, knew what she was getting out of it, and wouldn't have had that issue. So they think that was like the biggest, I guess, black mark, or maybe the downfall of him. About, you know, was that a little year and a half ago, maybe, when that came out? So definitely not a good run. I think no matter what we think, he did not have a good run in his a few years there at Disney. But I think we're both happy. This is back, even though he's like, I think it's 2 years right now that he's back for. So anyway, Avatar: The Way of Water coming out next year. I didn't buy tickets yet, Mike. I know you probably haven't bought your tickets, so December is always really weird for us. We have birthdays and other holidays in that month, so you have to kind of plan accordingly around there. So Chris and I kind of talked a little bit off mic last week about this, saying, you know, we're going to have holiday interruptions at the end of December, like usually for the podcast. So what we might be doing is coming back fresh in the month of January with a bit of an Avatar extravaganza, if you will, where we rewatch the first one, watch the new one. We'll talk about it all on the show. We'll lay it all out there, give your ears a little bit of blue joy. And, you know, it also might take you a little while to go watch it. Some people might be waiting till Christmas Day, you know. That's kind of like traditions in a lot of households to go see this film. And, you know, we don't want to spoil anything or get ahead of it. So that might be how it shakes down. So if you don't see Avatar, you know, right on the 16th or 17th that weekend, I mean, wait until the new year. It'll be like a little surprise. Yeah, and like we talked about again off air, Avatar is really not in our superhero wheelhouse. It's fun. It's definitely something in the zeitgeist, but not in the superhero wheelhouse. So we feel okay not covering it the day of, because like I could just say I'm going to Disney. I'll be at Disney the weekend, or I guess I'll be back in time for that of the week. But Christmas is on a Sunday, which is when we normally record. So we're probably doing that this year. So, but we'll keep you guys posted as we get closer to the holidays. Something a little close to my heart, Mike, here is Transformers Rise of the Beast, because it will be the first live action debut of the Beast Wars, right? The Maximals, the Predacons. And here, as is tradition, merch leaks the first looks at all this stuff before we even get a trailer. So the first coffee mug here, found in source, shows the Maximals, including Optimus Primal. He may not be Optimus Primal, he may just be Primal. Rhinox, Cheetor, and Airazor in their beast modes coming up for this.
They look like the animals, but like if these were behind the glass in a zoo, you'd be like, what the hell is wrong with that ape? What did they do to that guy?
And that's the thing, you know, again, Beast Wars was set in the prehistoric era where humans weren't, so they look like animals, but they didn't have to. I think this is cool. I've seen the toy of Airazor myself, like and some other things. They're going with a steampunk approach to some of these designs here with like Airazor. So I'd be excited to see him.
I feel like my pitch would be, I don't really want to watch weirdly enough, I don't want to watch a Transformers movie kind of without a human in it. Mm-hmm. Like, I just don't want to watch realistic CG robots, you know, for 2+ hours. Yep. So they got to have humans in it somewhere, right? But any modern human with like a phone or the internet, you know, they're going to like kind of like debunk this right away or know kind of exactly what's going on. Yeah. This isn't normal. But if you set this maybe in almost a little bit of a pre-technology era, right? You know, you could see somebody like walking down like a cobblestone alley or something, like seeing like this robotic gorilla, and they would like run away and they would tell all their friends like, oh, I saw this. I swear I saw like a gorilla in the alleyway, you know, so no one could really know exactly what they're saying if it's half covered in metal. So maybe it'll be a bit of a period piece, possibly.
It's not. We already know what it is. It's got Anthony Ramos from Into the Heights, and it's modern. It's the follow up to Bumblebee. I just don't think like they're not supposed to be like hidden as these animals. I want to know why they're choosing the animal forms, right? Like obviously the cars they choose to hide, but these, like you mentioned, you're not hiding as these forms. Like or maybe they're in the deep. Maybe they're African transform, like they're in Africa kind of thing, and maybe like people just don't get close enough to him out there because there's not enough people. But I don't know.
There's like, hey, Cheetor, I just need you to stay 500 feet away from that safari truck. We look convincing, but not that convincing.
Yeah. Oh, but they're also, obviously Transformers. They have more of that. I want to see them. I want to see them in action. Like again, I think, we can't base them off of Mike here, but I think what I'm going to say is this, this movie's coming out June 9th of 2023. Is Comic-Con Brazil possibly where we're going to get some of this, because these are now hitting stores, right? Like this Comic-Con, they usually bring footage. They'll drop big announcements here because Brazil's a huge market for this stuff. So I think Transformers, we're seeing this mug, we're seeing some of these things. I've seen action figure shots of some of these. I think maybe next week, and we might be talking about our first teaser trailer, Mike.
I wouldn't be surprised. We are always pretty shocked what comes out of that comic book convention.
Yes. So that takes us into our next topic, which is CCXP. So we call it Brazil Comic Con here. I don't know what the CCXP Comic Con something. I don't know what XP stands for. I'm not even going to try to look it up. But apparently, this is Marvel Studios will have a presence there, and this is good news because we have three movies next year at least, right? That I know of. Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is coming out in February. The Marvels, which I put the release date down here, which I believe is July. And then what's the third movie next year? Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in May of next year, right? So we have three big movies coming next year. So I'm very excited to kind of see what comes out of this.
I don't know if it's necessarily a Marvel only panel, or maybe if it's possibly a Disney panel as well, but we were talking off mic earlier this week that we wouldn't be surprised if there's an Indiana Jones trailer that's ahead of Avatar, so maybe that's a place that gets aired first.
It's funny you mentioned that because they just released, I saw earlier before we were setting up, they released like 6 new images from Indiana Jones today. I'm like, oh yeah, that trailer's got to be on the horizon, right? Like they showed it at D23, I believe, right behind closed doors. Yeah. They've got to get a name in front of it. People are excited. I'm kind of excited. I'm actually thinking. I'm sitting here thinking about it. I was like, man, that's pretty exciting for that. So, yeah, that could be this week, or I guess this month, right? Coming up as well. That's a good call. So the other thing I think. I don't have confirmation here, but I believe Sony is rumored to have a presence, and that's going to tie into at least 2 of our topics coming up here in a minute as well. So, because despite them being in the MCU, Sony owns the distribution and announcement rights of of Spider-Man. So Marvel can't tell you when Spider-Man's coming. Sony has to do that. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's first jump into a bit of news here from some producers here on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Namor, apparently a solo movie still cannot happen and is not in the cards due to the shared rights with the Universal Studios for Namor and also the Incredible Hulk, right, that we've talked about before in passing.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Namor. He was probably one of my favorite parts of the film, but also, I got a little craw on my side with underwater cities being a little lackluster. So, I don't know. I personally was never expecting a solo Namor movie, but I mean, there's really nothing precedent that we've seen that said, if they had the rights, it wouldn't have happened, right? They've introduced lots of characters before in other movies, and they go on to have their own solo films. But, yeah, I guess that does, because this is is Namor a Fantastic Four character? Who owns the rights to this one?
Yeah, so Namor as a solo character is Universal as well. So he's not Fantastic Four. He actually debuted around Captain America's time in like the 1940s. Right, 1930s, 1940s. So he was a solo character before he had any affiliation. He's also part mutant, and he's been in Fantastic Four. So he was probably passed around several times.
It makes you wonder that if there's an alternate universe, right, where Universal was able to get more than one Hulk movie made in a franchise, would we have seen Namor pop up in one of the Hulk sequels and
that would have been pretty cool.
I mean, I mean, actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we've really quite seen an action set piece with the Hulk kind of in water. Like, I've never seen the dude swim. You know, it'd be fun to see him like kind of like jumping around different islands, trying to like punch Namor in the face. And we could get that in the future at the MCU. It just won't be in a Namor solo movie.
Yeah. So we think we are theorized. We've seen some quote unquote legal documents, and if we had money, obviously we'd pay a legal lawyer to an entertainment lawyer to look at all this legal stuff. But the universal rights might expire in 2023. We thought, right? I believe, which would be 15 years after the Incredible Hulk debuted, which is 2008. So if that's true, that means the Namor rights would probably go with it at the same time. As well. So what happened is the shared rights affected how the film was marketed, but not how the character is used in the movie. Universal has distribution rights, not story rights, like Sony does. So literally, Marvel had no qualms on how to use them and create them, but literally how the marketing was done was where that affected. Which I couldn't have unless someone told me, I would never have known this. Right? Like, this is something like they did a great job with the marketing. And telling us, using Namor and Black Panther. It's a Black Panther movie. We don't need Namor all over everything, but they did a good job with everything, I feel, at the end of the day. So, fun little fact. Put that in your pocket. Use it at the water cooler next time you need it. Moving into Spider-Man territory. This is a heavy rumor, Mike, that Spider-Man 4, the next Tom Holland film, has started an advanced pre-production on this movie.
Ooh.
So this likely indicates that a script or story is in place and concept art is being created at this time. So they are working diligently to get this up off the ground. So what this probably means is that Tom Holland has signed that agreement. They've already got everything. I feel like they moved on the other Spider-Mans pretty quickly. So I feel like the scripts have been written in secret, right, for a while.
Yeah, because I think a lot of these kind of legal barriers are kind of official moves, right? You can like pre-produce anything without the rights to it, right? It just comes down to when you actually try to take ownership over it. So yeah, they could have had this, done, ready to go. They just need to get the paperwork signed, right?
Yep. Get all the actors in place. So I think there's an opportunity for a potential Comic-Con announcement from Sony this weekend. Like, hey. This is we've had Spider-Man stuff come out of here before, so saying, hey, Spider-Man 4, and they probably would call it Spider-Man 4 or Spider-Man Untitled, and give it a release date of probably, we're thinking July of 2024 for this one. So that would be right around the corner. It feels.
I would assume with the fourth one, they kind of break with the naming tradition. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they would start kind of a new trilogy. That would actually be kind of cool because you could call it like the Home trilogy and then, the so-and-so trilogy. So I would be down for another naming convention for the next three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, even if they wanted to go down the route of like, they've had, Spider-Man, and then they had these Home trilogy, they had the Amazing movies, maybe like a Spectacular kind of naming system to it or something like that. I don't know. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man would be interesting. But the name's always the fun part. It doesn't give anything away, I feel, but I'm very excited to see what they do with this and what we get out of it from Sony. So if something comes up next weekend, we will be covering it next week for you. Moving on, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the other big Spider-Man thing coming up. We know this is coming. It's June 2nd, 2023, Mike. We are coming up on the halfway point, 6 months, half of a year. So there's been a couple images floating around. One is this new image of Miles and his parents from the film. It's not rumors, it's confirmed that there are 6 different art styles in this movie as they traverse different universes. So that's really fun to know. And I think with this images and the other ones kind of coming up is a trailer imminent at Comic-Con. Is this the Spider-Man announcement they're going to bring as well for this? Because I think that would be great to get in front of Avatar too for the holidays.
Yeah, that's true. They are kind of at the promotional window for the film if we're talking early mid next year.
Yeah, and since this was pushed back almost a full year, a little less than a year, they've probably been sitting on some of that promotional stuff for a hot minute, right? So I want to see this. I'm very, very excited to see some more Spider-Verse footage. So, have you revisited the first one in a hot minute since?
Oh, not in a hot minute, but it's probably one of the few modern superhero movies I've seen several times, right? Because I'm not a big film rewatcher, because there's just so much out there to watch. Who has the time to rewatch things? But yeah, this looks great. Yeah. It's nice to see him a little bit older, right? He's a little bit more mature. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll see him interact with a version of Tom Holland. Yeah,
or maybe Tobey Maguire. Maybe they'll pull in the other ones, but it'd be interesting. The Marvels is coming out next year, and obviously it's got the return of Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and Spectrum or Photon, whoever we're going to call Monica Rambeau's character. And this new promo material shows off all three characters in their new and improved outfits for the film.
Yeah, is this a pillow?
Looks like a pillow. Yeah, it looks like I think it's a pillow from a thing. So obviously Brie Larson, she's got her grown her hair back out since Endgame, so no surprise there. Her outfit looks pretty standard. Monica Rambeau is a black and white Spectrum outfit. That looks pretty cool. Or Photon. I don't know what they're going to call her in this one, but that looks really slick. That black and white outfit does, right?
Her. I wonder if that's to align a little bit more with Shield. Is she going to kind of be more still of a governing body agent, right? Yeah. Is she going to be operating underneath Nick Fury in that spaceship we saw?
Yeah, I think it was it Sword maybe she was in?
Yeah.
And that icon on her chest kind of fills that in a little bit there. And then we have Kamala Khan in her upgraded outfit with her bangle on, but the face, I don't know if it's the pillow squishing together, but her face looks really different, like a different actress almost in this. But it's cool to see them all together. I'm actually very, very excited to kind of see how this ties together a little bit. I did hear the leaked audio of the trailer from San Diego Comic-Con or D23, whichever one it was. Sounds pretty good. Nick Fury does make an appearance, so you called that right. But I'm really excited to kind of see what this kind of looks like kind of going forward. So maybe I wouldn't say, I don't think we're in the promo material for this yet, because this is technically after Guardians 3. We've not seen any Guardians 3 stuff except for the holiday special, which is a hell of a preview for Guardians 3. But you can check out that link in our link here, and that's coming out July 28th, 2023. Okay, so we're in the meat of the episode now. We have two things to review today, Mike. Two things. One is the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. So you got a chance to watch this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
Okay, good, because I couldn't remember if you said it or not, because I asked everyone if they've watched this. So we're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I'm going to go ahead and say we're just going to talk full spoilers. So if you've not watched this 50 minute, special presentation on Disney Plus, please go watch it and come back and listen so we can just talk full unadulterated review about this, because I think it's well worth watching.
Yeah, and we might as well also just say after this we'll be talking about Andor season 1 full spoilers too. So use the time codes, jump around where you need to, bounce if you need to, but I think we could kind of unbury the lead here and say that at the very least we recommend at least checking out one or two of these. I think Guardians of the Galaxy. So again, full spoilers if anyone's still here. I like Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special. I don't love it. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. I feel there is some really, really strong emotional beats in this. I think James Gunn writes a really good emotional beats, but the first probably third to a half of this is just fucking noise at my face. And I was like, this is too much music that is just kitschy for no goddamn reason. And I couldn't, I was very, it was making me mad. I'm like, why is it playing all this stupid Christmas music? I'm trying to enjoy this. The first, it's bookended by animated segments. We'll talk about that separately. But then there's these aliens who is obviously just a band who happens to learn music. I'm like, okay, there's a little kitschy intro on how the story starts, but then the whole thing until they get Drax and Mantis get to Earth into Kevin Bacon's area, everything before that
is just annoying as hell to me, and I can't point my finger on it. I'm like, it's just noise to be noisy and not really anything fun here to be
I
had.
think honestly what it is, just truth be told, is just underdeveloped. We do know the story that this was kind of written very quickly, almost in like kind of seems like to be a bit of a creative flop sweat, when Gunn got the idea. And it just feels like there's not a whole lot that the story is hanging on, right? Like all of the actors and performers and the visual effects are all working, and they're all really vibing with the characters. I saw some people online saying that they're very happy to kind of see the characters fully back underneath James Gunn. I guess they're feeling a little bit more familiar than they did when they were in Endgame or Infinity War. So people are glad to be seeing that. But yeah, it just seemed like there just wasn't a whole lot going on, right? They kind of just drop out of nowhere. Pun intended, that they have purchased nowhere from the collectors, so maybe we'll get a little bit more background on that in the next
apparently
installment of the Guardians.
A lot of this was told so you don't have to know this going into Guardians 3. Apparently this is like a pre-watch, so when you watch this and then go into Guardians 3, they already own nowhere. Apparently, so
yeah,
which is fine. That part doesn't bother me too much, but boy, is it exposition heavy, right out the gate.
Yeah, and it feels almost a little clunky in a way. Yeah. It feels like there's kind of awkward spaces between dialogue. It's just where I just feel like everything feels rough, a little unpolished, right? So I agree with you. Once we kind of finally get to Earth and it becomes the Drax and Mantis show, it actually is really entertaining and really fun. Dave Bautista is hilarious as Drax. It's like he has made that character his own. Just the fact that he was calling that decoration that was that little guy, or I want that little goofy looking man.
The tiny funny man.
Yeah, and he calls even the candy cane, and Mantis is like, this is not a man. You know that, right? How does this does not look like a person? It just, those jokes are really, really funny to me. And they also is really creepy jumping around. Oh man. There's good stuff.
Yeah. So I think, the first half is James Gunn being quirky to be quirky, right? I think he's just I need to get this out of my system. Here's the quirkiness. And then once they get down to Earth, it's fun to see Drax beat up a transformer or a robot. He's like, robots killed my cousin.
I forgot about that.
So they're having fun. They're on Earth. And then they get to Kevin Bacon's house. And these references you mentioned, like the candy cane and the little funny man, they pay off, right? Because literally Drax flips a police car and Mantis gives them the candy cane to make them feel better. She's like, but this isn't a man, right? And they're like, no, it's not. She's like, I thought so. So upon Clementine, I think as Mantis comes to life a little bit more, right? She's got more of an emotional range. Mind you, it's still that of a child, right? She's very happy and giddy, or kind of angry, but not mad, rage-filled angry. So the journey to this, and then using the powers on Kevin Bacon, making him he talks like a British guy at one point in the ship, which is funny. It's
when they were dogging on him being actors,
he's like, oh my god,
meta joke,
of
actors calling themselves the worst people. I thought that was good. I was big in that.
I think literally once they get to Earth, that is a beautiful point of this thing going forward. And then the whole set, Peter not knowing that they've decorated for Christmas on nowhere, and his Chris Pratt's reaction to this it felt very good, right? Everything very emotional. That's the Christmas spirit, right? Everyone's giving gifts and everyone's having a good time, and then they wheel out Kevin Bacon in a box. I love awkward middle-aged Groot.
He's I'm calling him kind of like frat bro Groot.
Yeah.
Because he has that big chest. It looks like he benches a lot, right? And he kind of has that dumb kind of jock energy to him.
He's got big Groot body, but baby face still. He's he really has, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Everything about it, in the back half was really felt like Christmas and holiday-ish. I really had a good time. Kevin Bacon singing the song with lyrics that made no sense didn't really do me anything either. I don't know. I feel like that kind of took me out of the moment at the end.
Sometimes I do get the vibe that people think if I make a Christmas song that sounds like it belongs on a Christmas playlist, it will be successful. And it's just like, no. You have to do a little bit more work than that. You can't just throw in Christmassy lyrics and Christmassy like jingle bells and it becomes like an iconic song. There's got to be a little bit more to it, and it feels like they didn't really quite get to that level.
Yeah, it wasn't like you said. It was the ingredients are there, but it wasn't quite fully baked. I feel right. Like it still kind of needs some more time in the oven, a little mixing to figure it out. So yeah, I think that was overall not too bad. I enjoyed Cosmo. Right, we get Maria Bakalova. She was in Borat 2, the daughter. She's the voice of Cosmo in this and Guardians 3.
Oh, okay. I almost thought it was the voice actor that did the voice of BMO in Adventure Time, but once the dog talked a little bit more, I was like, oh no, it's not. But it kind of has that same type of almost like cadence to it, but slap a little bit more like Eastern European or I guess Russian onto it, since it's like a Russian dog.
Yep. So she's a voice of Cosmo, so that was fun to see them interact. We get the big revelation here that Mantis and Star-Lord are brother and sister, which I'd seen articles saying there was deleted scenes saying they were brother and sister and it was removed, and actually it was this scene, but they released those Legends episodes early on accident. So I'm curious as to why Mantis has her powers when Ego has died, but Peter does not.
Well, I guess it's funny that it's a revelation, because I almost kind of thought that they said this kind of very plainly in Volume 2, and I just didn't remember it, right? And it almost seems a little less special in a way of like, Ego was like, quote unquote, spreading
he's
his
a philanderer
all over the gut. He probably has thousands of children, so the fact that Peter has a sibling really is not that special. I kind of just thought Mantis, I guess, was, and I just forgot. So that wasn't that big of a revelation to me, but it was kind of nice for him to find out like he accepted her because she was really worried about it, and that, I would say, that emotional payoff was effective for me.
It just was weird that was at the beginning, it was that part of the awkwardness, like, well, I want to do something special for Peter because he's my brother. Like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. This is where the story's going. The payoff was great, but the kickoff was, kind of sloppy, I think. There was some fun Suicide Squad references on the star map. Did you notice that? There's John Cena.
I didn't catch that one. No.
The actors and stuff are kind of in there a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was fun. The bar scene was fun, right? When they're getting drunk at the bar and dancing with everybody. That was interesting.
That was funny, but the only like little pet peeve I have about that, they put 2 montages in a row. There's a whole montage on the Star Walk in Hollywood.
Yep.
And then they go right into a bar and there's another montage. I was like, you can't put 2 montages right next to each other. That's not how it works. So that was... that made me a little nervous. I was like, oh, we're about halfway through this, and they're just slapping montages all over the place. But luckily, it didn't end up being that big of an issue.
Yeah, I think I like the drinking montage better than I like them on the street montage. But yeah, anyway, I think overall, it's a fine thing to watch. It's got the holiday spirit. It's not offensive by any means, but it's not of James Gunn quality that I would come to expect at the end of the day.
Yes, and if we have any new listeners that aren't super familiar with Chris's mannerisms, when he means unoffensive, it means it did not offend his critical personality.
I watch
we're never looking. There's not like microaggressions that we're worried about finding in the.
No. Yeah. If it didn't offend me, means I didn't hate it. I didn't. It's not like something you have to go. You have to. I would say you have to watch it probably before Guardians 3, but like you're not gonna hate yourself watching it. There's a lot of fun things to be had in here, even if our nitpicks are, valid or whatever. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I just didn't care for literally James Gunn's quirky music choices blaring in my face the whole time.
Now the trick here is what is going to happen the next time we see Bucky. Theoretically should have a different arm now, because that was his most recent arm, right? That kind of Wakandan black and gold arm. Was that the one in Falcon and Winter Soldier, if I recall correctly? I don't remember if we got a whole lot of
he I don't think he got a new arm at the end of it. No.
Yeah.
But is
So
that his
that
arm from
should-
that, or is that the arm from whenever he dusted the first time? Because he had a black and gold from when he dusted.
Actually, I can't believe I never really thought about that before. When he dusted in Infinity War, did his arm plop to the ground? Because I feel like the gun may have fallen to the ground. That's a good question.
I'll have to go back and watch that scene. But
I would like a little bit more follow up on Bucky's arm, but that was really, really funny. I was like, oh, he finally got the arm.
He got the arm. He was like Bucky's arm. Like he even knew the name. I'm like,
Yeah.
So even if people hated them under the Russo brothers, look how much fun it still was, right? Like that was still a paid off reference. Also, the Guardians' new ship, I did want to say, is called the Bowie, named after David Bowie, the one that Drax and Mantis flew down to Earth there.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it. Looked like it was spray painted too. Like maybe like was it like blue and purple or like a fuchsia and teal kind of colors to it. It was pretty fun. So I'm excited to see them. Take Nowhere and be in charge of Nowhere and see where the Guardians are. It sounds like they're in a way better position than we saw them in 1 and 2, right? Like as a team, like they actually own a facility from the Collector and they're out doing stuff with people. So very excited.
They're more established because even Drax and Mantis were talking up Peter as though he was like this heroic kind of old Western hero that saved the town kind of vibe. So he's kind of reached this bit of a mythological level.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Nebula was there too, helping take an order. So I'm excited to see it. Very fun. So, overall, again, it's on Disney Plus. You can watch it. I'd recommend you watch it. I don't think there's anything offensive in here, but it's definitely. Again, I hate to say it makes me hate to think of James Gunn uncontrolled. God, I don't want him uncontrolled. So, anyway. Let's jump into Andor, Mike. Let's get onto this.
Finally,
I know
you're begging. For 12. Well, I guess not quite 12. Like 10 weeks now.
Yeah.
We finally get to talk about it. You're on my level.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 when they came out. So I was just behind a little bit, and it's fine. I followed it. I stayed up to date. So Andor season 1 is up. There's only 2 seasons of this show. If anyone is curious, yes, there is a season 2 coming. Season 2 is the last season, and it will end right before where Rogue One starts. So it'll cover 5 years in the next season. So don't worry, there will be another season. I think what's cool about this is if you're a fan of Rogue One, you're probably going to like this, but that's because Tony Gilroy, who wrote Rogue One, also wrote the show and most of the episodes. So I think he was also the showrunner, not a director, but I think he was a showrunner as well. So if you really like Rogue One and the character and the story he was telling in Rogue One, this is a part of that story, right? A bigger part of that. And I will say the biggest flaw this show has, Mike, is calling itself Andor. I think, someone mentioned, they should have called it Spark of Rebellion or something different, because there is very little Andor in this and a lot more other characters, and it makes it so much better once you know that part of it. I think telling people to watch a show about Andor or called Andor with Cat, then they're gonna think, it's just Cassian Andor. Yes, but there's so many other characters that make the show worthwhile the whole time.
And that was a bit of a problem when it came to us talking about it on the show for like the last year plus. We're like, who really wants to watch a show all about Andor? But I feel like this show is almost the perfect encapsulation of something I say on this on our podcast a lot, which is you can make anything good if it's made well, which kind of seems silly, right? If you write a good show, you can make anything interesting, and they did it. Like, I think Andor, like I said before on the show when I was watching it, is one of the best things Star Wars has ever made. And it's I couldn't point to one specific thing that says, this is what makes it one of the best. It's just competent on all levels. Like, I think one of my single favorite things about the show is just the small things that they take time to focus on to flesh out the world a little bit. And I've been trying to hold on to these little nuggets in my head because I knew we'd be talking about this once the show finished. And just one example is there's a guy in like this, I guess it's like a mining town. I don't know. I didn't recall exactly what they were doing, but they all have these like work gloves, right? And
It's
they're
a
going off to some sort of
they're a salvage yard. That's
salvage yard.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But there's this in the center of town. There's just a dude's job to walk up to like this bell tower and use these hammers to bang this like anvil. And I feel like maybe other creators would have just kind of put like a normal bell up there, but like, no, we're going to put a person up there. And not only is he hitting this anvil, like he gets into it. Like he has like a whole spiel where you can tell he walks up there every day. He's really into it. He puts a little flare behind the hammers, even though he's like hundreds of feet in the air and he knows probably no one's really looking at him. And it's just like, these little things like that just makes me think, oh, the people that are making this are really appreciating the story. This isn't just something like, oh, let's just make something like really cool in Star Wars and just like, rest on everything that's been created. Like, I feel like they're just making new Star Wars memories, which is something I have not had in a while.
So I think what you're trying to find that you maybe haven't put your foot on yet is that this show is I would literally call a political thriller, right? Very much in terms of genre, but like there's no twists and turns. You see everything coming. I feel like there was no surprises, but the tension in every scene is palpable. Like you're like, oh my gosh, I'm fixated on watching this because you care about the characters, like you said, right? Like it's the actor choosing, the writing, the interactions. Like you care about them, even though there are some time jumps here and there across the show. Like you're like watching, like, oh, I care about, like, oh, I really am invested in these characters. I know what's gonna happen, probably very predictable kind of show, but like you still are watching the whole way through. And I think like the way they've written that and even shot it. I think, like you said, all this seems to be physical sets, right? Like this isn't the volume anymore. All these sets are real, and that tangibleness of it, I think, adds to the production quality of the show to make you feel invested in everything. I wouldn't say it's a perfect show, but like, damn, is it fantastic all the way through.
Breath of fresh air. I mean, I feel like even when it comes down to like the set design, I feel like even though they're creating kind of new types of Star Wars ships in the same kind of like art direction and world, they still feel new and fresh. Like I just haven't quite seen something move the way that it does. One of my favorite scenes with one of my favorite characters that Stellan Skarsgård plays is where he's trying to evade this almost kind of comically looking Empire ship where there's just huge satellite dishes on the front of it, which makes me think that maybe it's like a reference to like an old toy from like the 70s or something.
It's not the first time that ship's been in Star Wars. The Arrestor class ship, which is like 3 super tractor beams on it or something, right? But I know exactly what scene you're talking about. But yeah, the Arrestor ship has been in other Star Wars media before, but it gets a highlight on its own in here.
Yeah, it's just great because they know what they want to do with the scene. We need our character to escape the grips of the Empire because everything's at stake for this character. The one thing that he can't do is get captured. It would be the worst thing possible. So we need him to escape. Now, they're very lazy ways or very simple or straightforward ways that you could get him away from this ship. But they pick probably one of the most entertaining ways to do it, and they show off how competent he is as a character. So they do something I've never really seen before when it comes to the Star Wars, like, air fighting. Like, it's almost always predominantly weighted on laser battles, right?
Or like avoiding asteroids and hoping somebody runs into one.
No, like he literally dumps out like the equivalent of like tacks to pop tires out of the back of his ship and shreds the tractor beam to pieces.
It's like a fletchet gun kind of thing, and he literally just it just raises up and silently fires all of these fletchet pieces right at the radar dish, and they're like, what the hell just happened?
And it's like so smart, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you can only ever get away with that once. Like the second that happens, the Empire is gonna like find a way, like, well, we can't let that happen again. But he's the smartest one, he's the first one to do it, he's never gonna have to do it again. And he has like these awesome freaking lasers that shoot off the side of his ship like Iron Man
too. It
was just so satisfying because you're just like, what's gonna happen happen here? And like he gets away and it's like so graceful. And I think that might be the same episode 2 where he has that monologue where one of his informants asks him, oh, what are you sacrificing? And he just goes into like this soliloquy of just like, I've given up everything. Like not just things that I want to do, but things that I could possibly dream of doing in the future. Like my entire being right now only exists for this one cause, and nothing else can occupy my brain or ever will. Like I've sacrificed everything. I might as well be dead, because even if I achieve what I want, it's never going to be exactly what I thought it could be. You know?
Yeah, and he's like, even if we get there, I will never be able to give this life up, kind of thing. He's like, I'll never see this. I'm doing this for a sunrise I'll never see in the future.
It's just like never have I connected with the plight of a character in a Star Wars movie ever this much. And then we talked about it on the show as I was watching it. They have like a heist sequence, the prison escape. Wow, that was intense, thrilling, satisfying, and I will say you made an observation that I saw as well, and I would agree with you. Not as many aliens as we are used to seeing in the Star Wars universe, right?
Everybody's a human in this, and that's fine. Obviously humanoids are going to be able to do the things that needed to be done, right? A heist and a jailbreak from a facility where they build things. So I'm like, yeah, it's fine. There were some nice aliens like later on, like right at the ports and stuff, but like it's mostly, again, you could have probably put this story in any other universe and it would have been, it doesn't have to be Star Wars, but that makes it, I think a universal story makes it that much stronger, right? Like it's not reliant on alien species to be
we were kind of theorizing a little bit. It could be a combination of a few things. You were saying it could be maybe more budgetary constraints of like, if we have less aliens, we can do more fantastical, set pieces or action scenes. It almost, to me, seems like intentional in a way where maybe Tony Gilroy, like you said, like wants to like humanize this story like a little bit more, right? And maybe even more so when you think about like this prison complex, which has to be so meticulously run. Like they almost like couldn't have such grip and authority over a complex if they have to worry about different types of life forms with multiple appendages and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Empire also has like a different like a prison
different
complex.
Well, there were several, it looked like, on that planet that made I think maybe one of the other things, if I had like to nitpick, and because overall I love this show, but like this is more of a problem that I've seen with Disney Plus shows in general that we've talked about. It had a very soft ending. Like, I'm not saying that there wasn't a lot of intensity that happens in that last episode, but it just kind of ends, right? Andor meets up with Skarsgård, and we find out, they're actually not going to kill each other, and they're forging more of a bond, but then it just ends. It's nice to have did you see the little after credit sequence? Right, I did. Yeah. Because it's showing that the facilities were building the Death Star. Like the inmates are building the Death Star stuff.
Yeah, so that was satisfying to see, but also like I'm so sick and tired of the Death Star. Like that was probably the only way to get me a little bit excited about how it was built. But I was like, I don't need to see the Death Star again for the rest of my life.
And that's fine. But they don't know about it until Rogue One, so you're fine. I think that's our like one reference.
Yeah, but it's just a very soft ending in a way of like the same thing kind of happened with Loki, where it just kind of feels like the next episode is just going to be like the 13th episode of season 1 in a way. So I don't know if this is just somebody overall in charge of Disney Plus kind of like tinkering with the way these season finales are going, but like just wanted something just a little bit more wrapped up. But if what you're saying is true, and season 2 is supposed to kind of wrap up this whole story, overall. But actually, now that I'm saying it, as I'm talking out loud, maybe it won't, because it would just kind of segue into finding what Jen Ursa in Rogue One. But I have a feeling once I finish watching season 2, I will want to watch Rogue One right away, which will be kind of fun.
Yeah, I think to me there are a couple of things where this show excels and starts to crack. The one thing where it cracks is very much 3 different segments of the show, right? There's the the main planet, the salvage planet, right? In Marva.
Mm-hmm.
So literally they drop this whole history of like he's from Canary and they just drop it. Like he's looking for his sister and like they just do nothing with that. Like at all, right? Like they just drop his whole sister plot. Then he's picked up randomly because he's jaywalking on a beach, right? To go to like for prison. I'm like, this is very sloppy transition between he did the heist, or I guess he did the it was the heist first, right? And then the jump, like he's picked up because he's walking on a beach, like near people who are running. I'm like, this is kind of sloppy, kind of like, yes, we need to get Andor or Andor if you're listening to what's his name? Sorry, I said Andor to the prison, but I'm like, it's kind of a sloppy transitions between all three segments, right? The way they do it, like they're just kind of like, I feel like there's more here that was cut. If I'm going to be completely honest, I feel like they maybe had like 18 episodes and they like, we got to cut this down a little bit. But like at the same time, you know, another character we haven't even mentioned yet is Mon Mothma is a major character throughout this whole show, and her facility. What they did great was cast her husband and daughter, who I fucking hate their guts because they're acting and the writing in this. I'm like, how is she staying with her husband? I know it was like an arranged political marriage, and her daughter's just fucking terrible to her the whole time. I'm like, she is doing a great job acting as I guess a political person while also trying to, you know, fund a rebellion and put a stop to all this stuff on the side. I'm like, so like, I feel like there's a lot of really, really good points in this. The actors, the heist characters, right? Like, all of them were very interesting. I was really sad that Nimic, was his name Nimic?
The one who wrote the manifesto?
Yeah, the kid died because I'm like, oh, he was really good. He has a really good reading voice.
And I love the dedication to the characters as well, right? You know, the way that they were giving them little quirks, casting faces that I've seen before, you know, really fleshing them out just to kind of end up like axing them. Yeah. Like, I was like, wow, like, thank you for doing that, because like it's been a while since like you kind of feel the gravity of the loss. And this was one thing that we did say about Rogue One when we reviewed it. One of the few Star Wars movies we've ever watched where it truly feels like they're in a war. Mm-hmm. And, you know, nobody gets out clean in war, even if you're trying to do the right thing, which we see a lot with the Mon Mothma and the Stellan Skarsgård side of things. So just everything was just working. I had such a good time watching this. Very gripping, very thrilling. I love the additions, and it grew. It grew out there on Twitter. I don't know if it's necessarily getting the broad appeal that the Mandalorian's been able to do with like with a cute baby Yoda, which I think still has its place. Yeah. Just because Andor, I love Andor now, doesn't mean, you know, things like the Mandalorian can't exist. I think they should.
Oh, 100%. I think the Mandalorian in this are two entirely... It's like trying to tell me, you know, again, Thor Love and Thunder and Black Panther are like, they're the same thing, and you shouldn't watch them. If you've seen one, you've seen them both, right? Because they're both in Marvel. Just because these are both on Star Wars, they're not the same thing. And I feel even like older people, like, right, your parents and grandparents could get into Andor pretty easily.
It's just it couldn't be any clearer, and I can't imagine Kathleen Kennedy isn't pondering this with the critical reception that Andor is getting. Get Tony Gilroy back into the Star Wars universe full time. Like, I know that they've been getting everybody a movie and a trilogy, right? But let them do more after season 2. Like, they're doing such a good job. I want to see more of this. It's so good. I've never been so energized for Star Wars before. And I kind of never thought that this was going to happen again at the rate that they were going. And we know what I say on this show all the time. Like, to me, you can distill Star Wars down to lightsabers. If I'm not seeing a lightsaber battle, why am I even watching it? I didn't see nothing real. I didn't even see like a cameo or a hint or a nod towards the existence of a Jedi. Yeah. And I had a great time still. They
mentioned nothing of the Jedi. I think we saw maybe just a couple stormtroopers, right? At the end, like not a whole lot of those either. Very, very segmented off. The introduction of the ISB, that team, the office politics of the ISB was interesting. The lady who I don't remember her name. but did a really good job.
You described her the perfect way, Chris, and I don't know if I ever responded to your text message.
Yeah.
She looks like she's always smelling a fart. And as soon as I read that, I kind of couldn't watch the season finale without thinking about it every time they showed her. But I was like, yes, he nailed it. That's exactly what it looks
she's
like.
always frowning. She looks like she just smelled a fart. She's like, I can't say anything, but God, it reeks in here. And she does a great job. Everyone in the ISB does a great job of acting. Like, you want to hate them, right? But at the same time, you're like, oh, they're doing what they want. The actress who played the robot, it was something. The robot B2.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of they're
calling him
shortening it to
B.
like B. It seems like
Yeah, they're just calling him B, but and that Marva. I think there's so many actors in this. There's so many actors. They're so great. I can't really put it down. I will say the actress who plays Bix, the half love interest, whatever. At the end, she's the actress in Morbius. So she's really come a long way since being in Morbius. So I didn't realize that until I was watching. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the chick in there. But I agree. Like, I think, we will retract our previous questions of why you need this after watching it. We now know why. I still think the first 2 episodes are really slow. But once you get to 3 and beyond, boy, it's a hell of a show. It's a really hell of a show.
This will be a great show to binge all the way through, Chris. Because that's what you did.
Larry did. Yeah.
What's the over under? What are the odds that we could theoretically see Kenobi in the second season? Because these are kind of the only 2 shows occupying the same time zone.
None. If the question is there, I don't want to see him after watching this. I think keep it isolated, right? Like,
well, I agree. I mean, what they're doing is great. But like, I feel like I'm really starting to trust Tony Gilroy after all this, and like if he feels like it would be effective, because if season 2 is supposed to take place over more time than the first season did, there might be just more adventures and drops in and outs. But just everything. I feel so great. Yeah. So now we're getting more Mandalorian, which should be great. Everything's looking good Star Wars wise right now, and I'm sure Bob Iger is happy to bring it full circle. Yeah. He's happy to be back with some successful Star Wars. Now maybe he can just kind of like point the Marvel ship just a little bit. I'm not saying it's like going totally off course, but it seems like maybe we could like scrub a couple of the barnacles off, improve our fuel efficiency a little bit more on that boat.
I think Marvel will be fine, like we've talked about. Andor seems isolated from Mandalorian and Boba Fett, right? Because Boba Fett was not a good, thing for the Star Wars world at the end of the day. Marvel's, I think we talked about, suffered from COVID pretty heavily, so I think I'm excited to see the post-COVID production, right? The reaction to this one. But I think, if I was to say anything for Star Wars, I don't know if I want more. I don't want to milk Tony Gilroy for all of his ideas. I think if he can give us a really, really good season 2 and calls it quits, I'm happy with that. I think he just needs to set a precedent saying Star Wars is not always about lightsabers and Mandalorians, and the political stuff can be just as enthralling and interesting as everything else in this world. Because George Lucas didn't make the political stuff interesting. Tony Gilroy has made it very interesting along the way. So, I'm excited. I'm excited for more, Mike. We'll eat our crow and say we were wrong, and this was a fantastic show. So, love it. All right, Mike. Anything else before we get out of here?
Well, I'm just staying tuned for the next addition to the Holly and the Hot Chocolate cinematic universe.
Good God.
I'll let you know, everybody, when that drops. But if you want to figure out where I am, boosting this movie, you can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you and make sure you're not dying from the flu, where can they find you?
Well, I appreciate that. You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, Valdan. If people want to know more about the show, what we're doing, what we're watching and listening to, I guess our next review possibly would be Avatar, right? We don't have any other superhero movies coming up, or maybe get ready for CCXP coverage next week. Where can you get all that good stuff at?
Well, all you have to do is head on over to superheroslate.com superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find our show notes and to get our awesome upcoming release calendar. We got that over there on the website. Nice little text-based list. No pop-ups, no dumb ads getting in your way. You can just get a nice little itemized list of everything that's coming out over the next couple of years. Release dates are always shifting and it gets very confusing. So that tool we made for you and for us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to find podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love it when you reach out. Let us know what you're watching, what you're listening to. You know, if you liked also Holly and the Hot Chocolate,
Stop it.
Let me know.
Stop
I
it.
Talk about it. It's amazing. I will milk the end of this show as much as I want, Chris. And milk is usually a pretty good component for hot chocolate. You know, I know the package says water, but it's always better with milk. And I know you're lactose intolerant sometimes, so you could use oat milk. I'm just saying there's options. But if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend. Share the show with a buddy. We'll be here every week, folks. And that's it.
That's right. We will catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.